Part 19. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 181. Bismarck could actually see the changes in Lexington. Although many people think that she is serious, rigid, and careless, in fact she does not lack the attentiveness of a woman. Observing Lexington carefully these past 2 days, Lexington at this time is different from the past. Although I used to be called MRS and MRS in the past, the word MRS is more like a nickname than the actual meaning of the title. However, until now, Lexington was not called MRS, but she could already see that her admiral and Lexington had a vague tacit understanding, which was something that had not happened before. According to his personality, he should not have cared about anything originally, but when he saw their intimate display, although his face was calm, his heart was still turbulent. At first I didn't think it was a big deal, as long as the admiral was around, it would be fine, but some things really came out in comparison, and I started to feel dissatisfied once I compared them. At this time, Bismarck was standing on the pier of the garrison. There was only a small yacht tied to the bitt with a cable on the pier. There were seagulls around. These seagulls were not afraid of people. She was standing next to her, and the seagulls were pecking at her. "What are you looking at?" The voice came from behind, and Bismarck turned his head to look over. San Juan. Apart from knowing him during this time, she didn't really recognize San Juan. After all, there were so many people in the guardhouse, and she didn't like making friends outside. If we hadn't gotten to know each other again during this period, we would have been unrecognizable when we were outside before, even though they were once sisters from the same garrison. She vaguely remembered that San Juan always wore pink clothes and seemed to have cat ears and tail-like decorations on his head. Until now, the opponent's suit has not been opened, and she looks like an ordinary girl. San Juan said, looking at the sea. Of course he would not speak out what he was thinking. Bismarck said casually, thinking of the time when I was a mercenary. San Juan sat down next to the pier, shook his legs, and said, I have been running around before, but not as a mercenary, just as a guard for a security company. Usually I either follow the ship around, or I am in the company's dormitory. Even though I'm a ship girl, I actually don't like the sea very much. I get wet just by doing it, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's not like you've never had to attack before. San Juan looked dumbfounded. Alas, Bismarck, no one told you that you have no talent for chatting. Although I don't like to attack, if I can't attack even once, it must be because I have been left out and hidden in the snow. San Juan grimaced and said, that's different. There's a difference between being unable to attack and not wanting to attack. Bismarck said, it is not a pretty thing to attack. Of course, it's best to be comfortable and bask in the sun every day. San Juan stared at the waves on the sea and said, but if I'm basking in the sun every day, I probably won't be here. I remembered that I first met the admiral on the boat, and he was talking there with his little house. I found him, he couldn't even recognize me. Speaking of which, there were actually 2 admirals on board that ship. One of them wanted to fish me out. He was actually the admiral of the garrison next to us. He attacked the ship girl who already had an admiral. I don't know if he will be embarrassed when he sees me. San Juan looked at Bismarck's profile and said, speaking of which, Bismarck must have encountered someone who wanted to salvage a ship. Yes, as he said this, Bismarck remembered what happened in the past, when he met someone who wanted to salvage him. But in the end, she refused outright and rushed back early, just in time to see her sister and her admiral looking at photos in the room. I still remember that scene clearly. I have a friend. She named herself Zi. She seems to have a crush on an admiral. I see her running outside every day. I have resigned. It seems that she will be taken away by others soon, so I want to resign. But she has always been a big talker, and small things can turn into big things. I don't know what she thinks. Anyway, any outcome is possible in the end. Bismarck was really not good at chatting, so he still nodded with a cold expression. However, San Juan has a good temper. If the Prince of Wales were here, he would probably have snorted. Of course, Bismarck would never chat calmly with the Prince of Wales. San Juan said, speaking of which, I was the one who found the Admiral, his character is really troublesome. If you don't take the initiative, who knows when he will figure it out. Listening to San Juan talking about various things around her, this girl seems to have been trying hard to have a good relationship with everyone in the town hall these days. At this time, Bismarck looked at the sea in the distance. A seagull was hovering high, and then swooped down to the sea. On the other side, several people were walking inside a guardhouse. Why is it so gloomy around here? Is there a demon sleeping here? It must be a demon sleeping, and then the Admiral was sent here. Oh, Lord Amethyst, let's destroy the demon. There's nothing special, ah. Originally speaking without shame, Amethyst suddenly screamed. Then the little beast, who didn't know whether it was a puppy, a weasel, a badger, or a fox, jumped out of the bushes on the side of the trail and disappeared quickly. Secondary school students are really troublesome. The counterattack looked around. The iron guard rails on the stairs of this townhouse were rusty, and the wooden piles looked like they had never been maintained. The branches of dwarf ornamental trees need to be pruned so that they are neither round nor square. From a professional maid's perspective, you can find faults everywhere. After wandering for so long, I finally found the Admiral, but the next step is to clean up. Counterattack said, as the maid's heart was in turmoil. They talked and commented on this garrison. After all, it was a place where they would spend a lot of time in the future. At this time, a figure suddenly walked out. The Admiral named Tianhao saw several people walking into the guardhouse. Exeter with long pink hair, Counterattack in a maid outfit, and Amethyst, a gothic Lolita, are beautiful and cute. From his professional point of view as an admiral, these are all ship girls. At this moment, he remembered the rumors he had heard before. If you are good enough, maybe some ship girls will take the initiative to join your garrison. So should you be lucky now? Tianhao said, you can view it as you like and live wherever you want. I am the admiral of this garrison. Welcome. Someone appeared, but the person who appeared in his field of vision was completely different from the one in his memory. Exeter said quickly, sorry, we went to the wrong town hall. Saying this, they walked away in a hurry. Tianhao still wanted to show his demeanor as an admiral, but an indescribable feeling came up. Anyway, he was a little numb now. Exeter said, it felt so awkward to go the wrong way. But are there any guardhouses around here? Let's go back and ask him. To the southwest of Tianhao's garrison, Sugu was standing by the dock. He announced his decision at first, then made some messy preparations, and decided to go find Exeter. There is no danger in such a journey. Saratoga wanted to accompany her at first, but her proposal was immediately rejected by her sister, so she is still talking about it now. Sugu was talking to Lexington, and then he saw Bismarck standing in the distance looking into the distance. Then he thought that Bismarck had not attacked for a long time. Was he thinking about the vast sea? So with this thought in mind, he walked over. Suguki walked over, but before he spoke, Bismarck said, Admiral, are you leaving? Well, let's go. Sugu said, I haven't been to sea for such a long time, do you want to go out for a walk? It is okay. I still want to go out and have a look. Nothing. The topic stopped like this, and Sugu didn't know what to say at this time. After a long time, he said, no more, I'm leaving first. That. Sugu stopped, turned around and said, what's going on? Well, Admiral, speaking of which, in our hometown, there is a etiquette for saying goodbye, which is the kiss. Bismarck said with some hesitation and a stammering voice. I originally wanted to refuse such a thing, but after seeing the changes in Lexington these days, and later listening to Bazai's great advice, I felt that my relationship with the Admiral was too unfamiliar. Sugu listened to Bismarck's words and said with a blush on his face, kissing the back of the hand. It's not necessary. I remember I did it when we met. Why did you think of saying such a thing? Speaking of which, Bismarck, where is your hometown? Awakened from the ruins of steel, he doesn't have his own hometown like ordinary people. If we talk about Germany in the old world, now the whole world has changed, and the etiquette is different from before. At first, when Bazai talked about the farewell etiquette, he felt something was wrong. He didn't react. Where did he come from, even his hometown, with such etiquette? What about kissing on the lips? Thinking like this, she realized that she had been deceived by her sister. Bismarck's face turned redder and redder, and she suddenly squatted on the ground, and then walked away without saying a word and with a straight face. I thought, how stupid I am. Sugu couldn't figure out the situation, but he just felt that Bismarck was somehow cute. Then Sugu took a small yacht and prepared to go to a nearby big city. Bismarck returned to his dormitory, and the veins on his forehead twitched all the way back. She didn't know what the Admiral would think of her, but she thought her image would be ruined anyway. Worried like this, she saw Bazai sitting on the sofa in the dormitory with his legs curled up. He seemed to be reading a book and laughing while reading it. Bismarck said coldly, "Tirpitz." "Oh, sister, why are you back?" Bazai put the notebook behind her back, looking like an honest child. She raised her head and responded. On the other side, Bismarck looked at Bazai's innocent look, and pulled out the opponent's notebook, then rolled it up like a stick, and then smashed it down on his head and face. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 182. At this time in the room, Bismarck rolled up the notebook and smashed it on Bazai's head. Bazai originally looked honest, but suddenly she was hit so many times by her sister that she was stunned. Bismarck said, "What's going on with that hometown etiquette?" She had never done anything so redundant and embarrassing in the past, and she had never experienced embarrassment. Then that time she felt embarrassed for the first time. Just like those words said, I really want to find a crack in the ground and crawl into it. Bazai still didn't speak. Bismarck waved his notebook and typed again, saying, "Aren't you very capable? Why don't you speak? I was wrong. What if I said it wrong? Then why do we need the police and gendarmes? When did you learn to deceive people? I was wrong." "Wrong," Bismarck continued to sneer. Hearing the noise here, after seeing off their admiral, Prince Eugen and Leipzig, who returned to the room, also ran over and stood nearby to watch the fun. Bazai touched his forehead, which had been knocked many times, and said, "Actually, it's all Saratoga's fault. She asked me to say that. She promised to buy me a book. Does that mean you did this just for a few notebooks? You're so righteous in selling your sister to seek glory." Prince Eugen brought the washboard over. Not long after, Prince Eugen smiled and took out a washboard from the bathroom. She had done this many times. Bazai looked at the washboard and said, "I owe you first, okay." Bismarck crossed his arms and sneered, "Ha ha. Then how about I ask the Admiral to kneel for me?" Bismarck raised the book in his hand and smashed it on Bazai's head, saying, "How about I discipline you for him?" At this time, Bazai saw the sneer on her sister's face, and her heart became colder and colder. She raised her head and thought about it, then took out her trump card and said, "Sister, wait a minute, don't hit me yet, I don't have to kneel, I have something good for you." Bismarck stopped his hand and showed a puzzled expression. "What is it?" Then Bazai dug out his treasure box and took out a large pile of photos. At this time, Leipzig felt a thump in his heart and already wanted to walk away. Bismarck picked up the photo and looked at it. It was a photo of his admiral sleeping. He looked at it for a long time and put the photo next to him. When did you take the photo? It was taken at night when the admiral was sleeping. Can I get up? She was kneeling on the ground. This is a good thing, but it's just a photo. Bazai stretched out his hands, like a child begging for candy, and said, if it's not a good thing, then give it back to me. Hearing his sister's words, Bismarck took a deep breath and almost couldn't help but complain. Did the girl really not understand the current situation? Bismarck said in a deep voice, I can't give it to you. Anyway, it's wrong to take photos. You took them without the permission of the admiral. Anyway, I confiscated these things first. Bazai retorted, how do you know I didn't get consent? Did he agree? No. You, Bismarck took a deep breath and spent a lot of effort to suppress his anger. Bismarck picked up the photos and looked through them. One of them was a photo of Bazai and the admiral. This photo could not be taken by one person. Her eyes became fierce and sharp. Who took this photo for you? Leipzig, of course. Without hesitation and without any thought, Bazai easily confessed Leipzig, his accomplice. Bismarck was stunned when he heard this. Leipzig was actually involved in this matter. Bismarck looked at Leipzig. Leipzig's expression was a little stunned at first, and then surprised. His mouth opened slightly as if he made an ah sound, and then his whole expression was frozen. At this time, the blonde girl Leipzig faced the boss of the German ship girl beside her and didn't know what to say. Although she dared to attack her admiral, it was because her admiral didn't seem to be a very reliable person. But she didn't dare to say anything random to Bismarck, who always had a straight face. Although I don't understand the specific situation, the cat with fried hair is not easy to mess with. Leipzig looked at the innocent-looking Bazai and felt like crying. As expected, he was not afraid of his godlike opponents but his pig-like teammates. He also planned to keep these photos and sell them to the little fat South Dakota in the future. However, Leipzig did not dare to play tricks in front of Bismarck. Bismarck might appear soft in front of the admiral, but he would not show it in front of herself. To her, he was the majestic boss. As a younger brother, how dare he cause trouble in front of such a boss, not even act cute. Ah, that matter, how should I put it? Leipzig pointed at Bazai and said, the supervisor came here before and slept here, and I went to sleep too. But I was suddenly woken up by Bazai in the middle of the night. You know, she gave me her camera. At that time, she asked me use it. How dare I refuse? I have no choice but to help her, I have no choice. Then I took some photos casually. Bismarck took a photo of himself and said, then give me those photos of yours. Yeah, I'll get it right away. Leipzig nodded quickly. Don't hide it, I want all the photos. Yes, sir. He stood still and saluted. With Leipzig gone, Bismarck turned his attention to the North House again. When Bazai heard Leipzig's words, he originally wanted Leipzig to help him share the firepower, but it seems that is not possible now. Bazai held his head and showed a pitiful expression, just like a small house. However, Bismarck was already immune to this kind of expression. It had been like this every time before. He would show this expression when he was beaten. He said he wanted to change it, but in the end he never changed it. Later, Leipzig took the photo from her room and was deliberately reminded by Bismarck that she really didn't dare to hide it. Bismarck flipped through it, then stretched out his hand towards the North House and said, take out all the photos. I've given it all to you, Bazai responded, and Leipzig turned his head out the window. Too shy. Bazai repeated it again and said, you took them all away. Bismarck threw the two photos in front of Bazai. Bazai took a look and found that they were photos he didn't have. Why don't you? Bazai turned to look at Leipzig, who was responsible for developing the film. However, Leipzig was looking out the window at this time, and it seemed that the scenery outside the window was wonderful. "Sorry, Biz, I just wanted 2 exclusive photos," Bismarck said coldly. "Biz, you are really capable. Keep kneeling, and you will get up whenever the Admiral comes back. It looks like an abandoned garden. Unless the owner leads you, ordinary people may get lost if they walk in." At this time, Tian Hao, the admiral of this garden or the town hall, and several girls said, "Did you say you are looking for an admiral named Sugu? The town hall is also nearby. To tell you the truth, I know him very well. If you need anything, just ask me. I'm absolutely happy. So, I'll take the liberty to ask, are you all ship girls?" Whispering, thinking about it for a moment, he felt that it was not a big deal, and counterattacked, "I'm counterattacking, she is Exeter, and that one is Amethyst. Do you have an admiral? Looking for him?" Hearing such an answer, Tian Hao was immediately elated. "Looking for the admiral. Find the admiral. Admiral. Since this is the case, it seems that he has quite a chance. As long as he performs better, it may not be impossible." At this time, the more he thought about it, the more excited he became, and he blurted out, "That's really great." "Huh? What did you say?" No, you can't be too enthusiastic about this issue. You have to make people fall in love with you unconsciously." Thinking of this, Tian Hao said, "I will have someone prepare a boat to send you there, so during the waiting period during the time, I will take you to visit my tutelage. My tutelage has excellent planning and rich facilities. It can be said to be a mini city." Then he made a long call like this. He countered, "No need to say so much, just tell me where Sugu is." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 183. The long-lost sunny day is considered the warmest sunshine in winter. At this time, under the sunshine, the blue water is sparkling. The sea breeze blows from the front, blowing the small red flag on the yacht and making a sound. The small yacht that was originally left behind by the garrison now looks presentable after being maintained and repainted. Although I dare not say it is brand new, but judging from the appearance alone, it can be said to be 80% new. Of course, this is from the perspective of a profiteer. Inside the yacht at this time, the captain is San Juan. She originally worked as a guard for a passenger ship and worked for a security company. Many of her skills were trained and learned by the company at that time. But no one expected to change jobs so soon. After all, it is rare and difficult to pick up a ship girl. So every time she talked about her previous company, San Juan looked distressed. Even now, she still feels ashamed of her former big boss, a Queen Elizabeth. At this time, Sugu looked at San Juan's skillful operation of the yacht. The girl who looked as delicate and frail as a high school student was an expert in many aspects. Although it was just the most common light cruiser in the game, it was once regarded as air defense dog food due to its ultra-high output rate. In fact, when it comes to utilization, there are no resources that can be squandered like in the original game. In many cases, light cruisers and destroyers are even more important to a garrison than battleships. After all, the consumption of a battleship sortie is too great for an ordinary garrison. If it returns from a big defeat, it will be enough for an admiral to cry. At this time, the yacht was sailing, and San Juan operated the steering wheel with one hand and said, "More is better, and big is beautiful." Of course, that is a famous saying for the big ship and big gun party. But now Sugu said, "Battleships eat more, now I like destroyers." You like destroyers, is that why you hugged Firefly and never let go? To be honest, Firefly let me hold him. On this trip, even Xiao Zai was not brought with him. Of course, The main reason is that Xiao Zai now has Lexington and Bismarck, and he is much less interested in himself. Compared to the gentle Lexington, and his wife, who has always been the so-called admiral, is just an unscrupulous adult who likes to pinch little girls' faces. But the main reason for bringing Firefly this time is that among all the ship girls, Firefly is a British ship, and the Prince of Wales has not been found for such a long time. The little girl is really worried, so she always has no energy. As the new year approaches these days, when I see the New Year's goods that I have gradually purchased and think about my current life, I shed tears. At this time, I also wanted to take the fireflies to relax. As Sugu said this, Firefly shrank in his arms. After all, he was an admiral with 100% favorability. It's a pity that the admiral has a favorable impression of 100, but there are still some things he is not satisfied with. At this time, Firefly said angrily, "Don't touch my head." Then she said seriously, "If you are touched too much, you will become bald. When I'm bald, I can hit the head better. I'm stronger now that I'm bald. Isn't that what they say?" Then Sugu got a headbutt from Firefly. San Juan tilted his head and watched Sugu playing with Firefly, and then said, "When we were at the dock, I saw you talking to Bismarck, and then Bismarck squatted down and ran away. What did you say?" "Bismarck's your character would act like this, you must have said something very shameful. If you say shame to Bismarck, even I will be kicked, just like when he was training with Bismarck. Bismarck also became a strict instructor when necessary. He never held back when he made mistakes." San Juan nodded. Following Sugu's line of sight, she saw her palm and said, "Why are you looking at my hand all the time?" Sugu said, "Is this fun for you? Want to try it? Let me learn from it. We are all on the sea anyway, and we won't crash. Seriously, if something goes wrong, what will be the most serious problem?" San Juan put his slender fingers to his lips, showed a thoughtful expression, and said, "The boat probably capsized. Then there was probably a scene like this. A yacht crookedly crashed into the dock of the county town. It was really a beautiful scenery, but the surrounding fishing boats had to make evasive movements long ago. Not long after, on the street outside the dock in the county town, San Juan had already left, and the ferry ticket had been bought. At this time, we can only do nothing and wait for the passenger ship to arrive. Although passenger ships are delayed most of the time, as a passenger, there is no reason for the ship to wait for other people than for people to wait for the ship." Firefly took the candy man and said while licking it, "Why don't we go there on a yacht? Didn't you say before that during your internship, the admiral there took you outside on a yacht, and then you met Exeter there?" "Elder sister. It's beautiful when you think about it, but forget it, that consumes fuel." "Oh." Then Sugu said to himself, "It doesn't mean that you won't be short of money if you become an admiral. There is still some shortage of money now. Moreover, Zeppelin still hasn't come over. I don't know if he is entangled in something. There are 3 garrison forts around, and we don't have a market yet. No company has approached us yet, and it looks like we are going to make a big news. Let everyone know that I am here and I conquer. Speaking of, Firefly, do you know Exeter?" Firefly with blonde hair and twin tails heard Sugu's words, raised his head and said, "I don't know him very well either." As he talked, he walked around the streets outside the pier. It was already noon, and Sugu took Firefly to sit at a roadside stall. Sugu has always had a strong taste, whether it is noodles or vermicelli, the bowl will always be red. After a long time, halfway through the noodles, I still wanted to drink water, but this roadside stall did not provide tea. Looking around, he saw a store in the distance. "I'm going to buy some water." "Firefly, do you want juice?" "Apple juice." Sugu nodded and wrote it down. He ran to the store in the distance and looked around. It seemed that there was only coconut juice here, which was pure and original. Just like that, he took 2 glasses of coconut water and was about to go back. Only then did he find a little girl hanging around him. The little girl was wearing a gothic Lolita outfit and had short golden curly hair. She was indeed very cute, so he took a few more glances. "Finally I found you," the little girl said this, staring at the coconut juice in Sugu's hand. Her eyes lit up. Then she covered one eye, looking like the villain in the anime Sugu had watched. Then the little girl put her hands on her hips and laughed. All in all, her movements were very artificial. She said, "Now I give you a chance to give me the coconut juice in your hand, and the most noble lady will forgive your behavior." I don't know where the little girl came from. Although she is very cute, she says some middle-aged words without any reason. Even if she says one of these middle-aged words, Zai will blush and want to hide. Sugu didn't understand the situation and didn't pay attention. After taking 2 steps, he found that the little girl was still following him, so he said, "Why are you still following me?" "Coconut juice." "Okay, here you go." "So why are you following me?" The little girl took the coconut water and said, "Aha, don't you even recognize such a noble me? What a troublesome little girl." Then he thought about whether it could be his ship girl. Sugu said, "Do we know each other?" But he really didn't know who the little girl in front of him was. If it was his ship girl, he didn't. With tears in his eyes, he didn't even yell loudly, he was just an ordinary naughty kid. The little girl hadn't answered yet. At this time, one pulled the little girl away. "I'm sorry, this kid has a bad personality and has caused you trouble, just like what Nohara Mizuo did to Crayon Shinchan in Crayon Shinchan." She clenched her hands into fists and beat them on both sides of the little girl's head. A woman in maid uniform teaches a difficult child a lesson. The little girl started to wave her arms and shouted, "Sister, counterattack, it's the Admiral, it's the Admiral." Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 184. She is wearing a maid outfit that is so distinctive that people are still watching her around. She has slightly strange gold and blue eyes, and her long golden hair is tied up on her head and then wrapped in a cloth. Except for the lack of the huge weapon called the ship suit, the counterattack at this time was exactly the same as the game illustration in Sugu's memory. At this time, she gently lifted up her skirt, revealing a pair of black round-toe boots. Then she bent down and put her white-gloved left hand on her chest, bowed slightly, and then shouted, "Owner." Counterattack looked at Sugu, who had actually complained a lot about his master along the way. "Indispensable for the development of the garrison is the reputation of my sister, who has always been admired as the god of war. The dashing maid can lead the fleet to victory at any time. The Prince of Wales is the senior who has always taken care of him, while my sister uses her back view that never stops in front of her. But compared to them, he had a pitiful record despite his brilliant equipment. When I graduated from the exercise, I was not almost deprived of my existence like many people. I have been working hard. In fact, I was sent out to perform the attack mission before I had grown to the limit. However, the various scenery along the way that I imagined was gone, and the battle was always the same in my memory. Until now, I only remember that it was called the Battle of Denmark Strait. Later, he left the garrison and formed a fleet with the Prince of Wales and others to attack. Some people tell themselves, "Don't hit the big boats first, clean the small boats first." At that time, I was thinking that if I didn't hit the big ship, I would have been scolded by the master before, so in the end the artillery fire was still directed at the enemy's battleship. In the end, of course we won, but I really saw too many tactics that time. I just remember that during previous drills it was always a trapezoidal formation. I just remember that when I attack, I will always be in a single horizontal formation. In the only memory I have, it will always be that formation. The enemy will always have 2 submarines, and they will be eliminated at the first opportunity. His goal is to shoot at the enemy's battleship with an ultra-long gun. Different battles have different tactics. That's what the Prince of Wales said to himself afterwards. There is no need to pay attention to what those people say. The enemies are very weak. Of course, the main force of the enemy must be eliminated as soon as possible. However, when fighting against the deep-sea flagship, if possible, it is still necessary to clear the small ship as soon as possible, and then launch a night battle against the enemy. General attack. When the Prince of Wales said this, I really didn't know at that time that all my value was reflected in the Battle of Denmark Strait. What are you doing? Many times I want to question the other person like this. What are you doing? I want to attack. Otherwise, if this continues, I will never be able to catch up with my sister. Counterattack looked at Sugu at this time, looked at the dazed face, and then smiled again. Whether it is salvaged or cultivated, in fact the owner will always occupy the most important position in his memory. To this day, I still remember the scene when I first came to the Tutelary mansion. The most important person in the Tutelary mansion was my sister, the so-called god of war. So compared to her sister, she is just an inconspicuous little maid. Although he was kept in cold storage for a while, he actually received a lot of preferential treatment along the way. He possesses excellent firepower that can be called super powerful equipment. It was originally a Bismarck weapon, also known as a cat cannon. Coupled with Mk6 and Type 91 armor-piercing bullets, few people are stronger than him in terms of ship equipment parameters. All these are given by the master to himself. So, what are you doing? If you don't let me attack, how can I repay your expectations? At this time, I saw the admiral again and the master again. In fact, there is only one thought in my heart: I have finally found you, and no one will separate us again. Then Wei Wei felt that she didn't feel like a maid, and that it would be more appropriate for her to think like a sister instead. He bit his lip and shouted again, "Master!" Their eyes met, and they looked back at Sugu in front of them. "Excuse me. Aren't your boots oiled? They're not shiny at all. The trousers have to be tucked into the boots, and the trousers are stained with dust. How can this be done? I don't know who helped you match the clothes. This is a bit outrageous. There is no such style. It's really not foreign or earthy, and the tie is not tied. Master, lift your chin a little, lift your chin, and let me help you pull off your collar. It's okay now. The clothes are wrinkled. You don't know who is washing them for you. Even if you don't have an iron, you should at least shake them before drying them. It's not up to standard. My hair is also a little messy, and the stubble needs to be cleaned up. There is no one around to take care of it for you. It's very troublesome. I'll leave it to counterattack from now on. Although I have more shortcomings than my sister, I will fight back hard. If you have anything to do, just leave it to your maid, the counterattack. Master." On the other side, Tian Hao originally wanted to take his new acquaintance to Sugu, but he casually developed a good impression along the way, and maybe someone would be attracted by his handsomeness and thoughtfulness. Of course, if possible, it would be best to use the counterattack number. After all, the maid is really awesome. I have always imagined it before, but now I finally have the chance. At this time, he came over with delicious local snacks, which he discovered after eating in all the shops in the entire county during his several years here. As for the ship to see off, he had already asked Cao Sheng to prepare it. He remembered that he expressed his desire to salvage the ship. Although it was a wedding ship, Cao Sheng was not angry at all. Instead, he looked like he wished you good luck. So far, there is actually no burden on fishing the boat. Carrying the things like this, Tian Hao could already see the counterattack in his field of vision, thinking about how to hand it over to the other party reasonably. Then he suddenly saw such a scene, squatting on the ground to tidy up clothes for other men. She looked like a real maid. After tidying up clothes, she stood aside with her hands on her apron. I have never seen that smile and thoughtfulness before. Who's that person? Are you kidding me? Did you agree that you should fish the boat yourself? Looking at it like this, my eyes felt a little sour unconsciously. He remembered that sentence that he had heard a lot in the academy, which was quite Mary Sue-like. He had disdained it at the time, and now he was unexpectedly touched by it. Don't bow your head, the spear will fall, don't shed tears, the seal will laugh. The candied hawse originally bought for amethyst fell to the ground first. I specifically asked the boss to add an extra portion of meat to make the burrito appear bulging. At this time, the shredded cabbage wrapped in the barbecue fell to the ground. At this time, he only felt that something inside his heart collapsed. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai-De Rong Yan. Chapter 185. People are coming and going on the streets of the county town. After all, it is at the dock where freight and passenger flows are transferred. At this time, there was a passenger ship parked at the pier, and passengers came down to shop and eat, so the flow of people was larger than usual. The encounter of just a few people will not bring any ripples to this county. For most people, they will at most take a few more glances at Counterattack and Amethyst because of her beautiful appearance and rare clothing. Perhaps in the eyes of some knowledgeable people, they can probably recognize that such an independent girl must be a ship girl, but they have no intention of saying hello. Looking at it from a distance, let's regard this experience as a future one. The talk of the party. The Counterattack is the battle cruiser, which is also the best among the battle cruisers with few talents. It's just a pity that the comparison target of battle cruisers is battleships, so such a comparison seems a bit weak. But for Sugu, the strength or weakness of the ship girl doesn't mean much now. After all, his goal is not to dominate the world. After experiencing so many things until now, Sugu is willing to shoulder his responsibilities. Although getting close cannot be achieved all at once, he will not respond to their feelings like a stranger like before. Although the humble expression on her face and the maid-like behavior she is now responding to are a little hard to get used to. After all, for Sugu, he has been a student and an employee over the years, but he has never been the master of a maid. Although Lexington treats herself very well, she mostly behaves like a sister treats her brother, or a wife treats her husband. Even Fletcher, now wearing a maid outfit, could tell that his counterattack was unprofessional. Of course, to be honest, the decadent and sinful life of capitalism is something to look forward to. At this time Sugu said, "How did you find this place? Did Exeter bring it here?" He was familiar with the pink-haired Exeter. Even though she wasn't wearing a nun's uniform at the moment, he could recognize her at a glance. "I originally wanted to find the other party, but I didn't expect that I would send him to his door first." While he was fighting back to arrange his clothes, Exeter stood beside him and smiled quietly. He countered, "Yes, I didn't expect that the master would establish a garrison here." Sugu explained, "I wanted to find you before, but I didn't know where to go." "Didn't you say you found fireflies?" "Doesn't she know?" "Firefly, alas, she can't even remember the way back. That child. She has missed you all during this time." "Really? I also want to see her." After standing on the side of the street and saying a few words, Sugu said, "Then it's as you wish. Over there, come with me." Sugu led several others back to the stall, while Firefly was eating noodles. Because there are no forks provided here, and she is not very good at using chopsticks, she is picking up the noodles with her chopsticks, and then turning them around, until the noodles turn into a big ball. Sugu sat down at the table and said, "Fireflies. I didn't buy apple juice, but I bought coconut juice. And I prepared a gift for you." "Oh," Firefly responded casually. She was fighting with noodles and had no time to pay attention to him. "You're not expecting it at all? Look back, it's a gift for you." Inexplicably, Thinking this, Firefly turned his head. A familiar figure stood behind her. At this time, he smiled and said, "Firefly." Counterattack sister. His expression was blank at first, and then he reacted, and Firefly pounced on him. The counterattack was undoubtedly much more popular than the Prince of Wales's. The Prince of Wales is dignified and serious in speech. Even if he smiles occasionally, it will only make people shiver. Moreover, the Prince of Wales is also an alcoholic. So in comparison at this time, considerate counterattack is the best person. At this time, Firefly's legs holding the counterattack, the strength of the arms, and the enthusiasm, even Lexington could not compare. It's just that she is still a little girl and not tall, so her head can rub against the apron of the counterattack. "Sister counterattack Neng Teng." "Sister counterattack," he said again. "Sister counterattack, woo woo woo." While hugging and shouting like this, Firefly suddenly started crying. Living together for such a long time, then separating, and meeting again cannot be expressed by simple thoughts. Then he counterattacked and picked up Firefly. The other party disappeared during the expedition, which made people worried. Although many people say that the ship girl is destined to sink into the deep sea one day, they have always felt guilty about the disappearance of Firefly. At this time, when his fingers touched the Firefly's skin, he immediately felt his fingers trembling deeply. Thinking of the time when the Fireflies disappeared. Many times I found that there was a lot less noise in the town hall. After all, there was no longer a little girl waving a wand and yelling. Every time I'm cooking, I always remember at the last moment that I prepared an extra serving, whether it's a rice bowl or a knife and fork. Occasionally, I would cook some delicious meals, such as the delicacy called Starry Sky. In the past, I would prepare a fish for each person, but in the end I found that one person was missing and there was an extra fish. Potatoes and fried fish and potatoes, salt and pepper potatoes, salt and pepper fried fish, fried potatoes, potato chips, although the dishes are cooked with new ideas every day. But every time I was cooking, I remembered that there was no longer a little girl clamoring for French fries, no more clamoring for fried fish dipped in ketchup, and no more clamoring for mashed potatoes. At this time, he counterattacked and touched Firefly's ponytail. The other party's ponytail was tied up with a hair tie, which was different from his usual method. He didn't know if it was from Lexington or who helped. He stretched out his hand to wipe away the tears from Firefly's eyes, and wanted to pinch the lovely white and rosy face, but the movement of his hand became much gentler. Firefly hugged Counterattack's neck. "Sister Counterattack, I miss you so much." "Firefly, I look like you too." The scene where Counterattack and Firefly meet is heartwarming, with Sugu standing nearby. Then he inadvertently saw Amethyst looking at Counterattack and Firefly with some envy, wondering if he had neglected the little girl, so Sugu walked over and squatted down. "Amethyst." Hearing Sugu's words, Amethyst immediately put on a face and showed a contemptuous smile. "I am a noble lady." As she said this, she tugged on her purple skirt, but her toes were pointed on the ground and her heels kept spinning. The smell of anticipation could not be concealed in any way. Then Amethyst said, "Don't even think about kissing me, I'm a noble lady, don't even think about my head, and you absolutely can't pick me up." Sugu smiled. Although he still couldn't adapt for a while, he would try his best to respond to his shipgirl's expectations. One hand patted Amethyst's head, and then his hands went through Amethyst's armpits to lift the little girl up. "Then why do I have to hug you like this?" Amethyst's arms were waving randomly in the air to show that she refused to be picked up. She waved her arms and finally made a helpless expression. "It's just that as a ship girl, if you really don't want to, how can an ordinary person like Sugu do anything? Then I'll make an exception and allow you to hug me, but even if you hug me, you can't touch my butt. You will never touch this, even if you want me to touch it, I won't touch it. I'm not a pervert." Meanwhile Exeter stood nearby and laughed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 186. The yacht is sailing on the sea, and Tian Hao is the captain. After all, San Juan had left earlier and there was no way to notify her for a while. Although it is possible to return to the garrison through a small road, it will not take too long since there is a boat, and the boat has been prepared, so Tian Hao will be troubled. Tian Hao's yacht is relatively large, after all, he has been running the garrison for so long. At this time in the captain's cabin, Tian Hao grabbed Segu's collar and shook it. His face was full of unwillingness and said, "They said they wanted to find the admiral. Didn't they find someone to be their admiral? Why are you here, there?" Segu raised his head and had a good impression of Tian Hao. After all, he was such a funny person. He said, "They said they were going to find the admiral, and I will be their admiral." Are you kidding? You are just the new admiral. Although I am a new admiral, I actually had a large garrison before, but it was later abandoned. Nonsense, if you have a big garrison, why haven't I heard of it? Like this. Tian Hao gritted his teeth, "Do you know that your expression is very perfunctory?" Segu quickly signaled to calm down. In fact, there is no news about his original garrison in the archives of this world. There has never been a record before, and no one knows him or his ship girl. Lexington and the others also said that they did not have much memory of the past, and the entire garrison seemed to appear out of thin air. Because of this situation, it even made people wonder if their garrison appeared in this world when they uninstalled the game. I considered this statement at first, but I didn't say it to anyone. Things about Lexington and everyone are difficult to explain, and there is no way to explain it to outsiders. Even if they are told, most of the time, people like Tian Hao just don't believe it. As for the governor's house, everyone can only let nature take its course. If too many people know about their special situation, they will only end up in trouble. Seriously, how did you get the counterattack? And Lexington? Maybe it's because he's handsome, Pan Donkey and Deng Xiaoxian. Roll. In this way, he casually said something to Tian Hao. Not wanting to irritate Tian Hao, Segu left the captain's room soon, and then Tian Hao was the only one left in the captain's room. After Segu left, Tian Hao lay on his chair and felt a little happy. His fingers were lightly tapping on the steering wheel, so he just hated communicating with Europeans. The yacht was sailing on the sea, with both legs on the steering wheel. There was only one person left, so the sitting position was more casual. However, he was just happy for a moment. He suddenly thought that now that guy was alone in the cabin with many beautiful girls, but he was alone. There seemed to be something wrong with this rhythm. On the other side, Segu was sitting in the cabin, stroking the firefly pillow on her thigh. "My sister and I are separated. There is nothing we can do about it. She wants to follow Hood, but I want to follow the Prince of Wales. Why don't we all be together? Just like why do you leave everyone? Everyone has their own reasons. When we first left the garrison, we followed the Prince of Wales. There were many people in the initial group. At the beginning, I didn't know what kind of things would be better to do. Although I am good at housekeeping, I am not as good as my sister at all. But what can I do if I am good at housekeeping? There is nothing good to do. The Prince of Wales only knows how to fight, and there is nothing outstanding except for fighting. However, her fighting skills are very good. If she is in the fleet formation, everyone's hit rate can often be improved through her command. Although her fighting ability is good, her personality is not very good at communicating with people and she doesn't know how to talk to people politely. She may be able to run a gang, but not other things. Counterattack stroked Firefly's face with one hand and saw Exeter resting his chin on his hand and looking at the distant seaside. She had already told these things to Exeter, and now she had told them to her master again, and now her mood was different. At first I wanted to be a mercenary, which is something that many ship girls who are strong enough and don't have a garrison like to do. But at that time, it was a bit outrageous for us to run around with so many children, and then I thought we might as well run the garrison by ourselves. It's a pity that the Royal Ark and the 100-eyed giants are not with us, so the air control is always less. Because the Prince of Wales and I are still afraid of airplanes. Well, even if they are here, they are actually not strong enough. Among them, the unicorn is more powerful. After all, you have equipped her with the carrier-based aircraft Sea Fang and Meteor. A ship girl born from the history and memories contained in steel. In the history of the Old World, the original Prince of Wales and Repulse were sunk by land-based aircraft. To this day, with the Prince of Wales and the Repulse born out of that history, fear of airplanes is a matter of course. There are many things we don't understand along the way and we have to learn. Although we are still quite strong, there are some things we cannot do casually. Breaking the rules and doing anything will only make us fall into the deep sea. Sugu knew this well. As for the rules that everyone abides by, as a ship girl, most of them have rules. She learned a lot of knowledge in this area when she was in the academy. Of course, there are many rules that are not binding at all. They are not like some associations where everyone discusses raising prices and then raises them together, or whoever they discuss and suppress will be suppressed. Those rules are for the better development of all ship girls, not for everyone to have their own ideas and make a mess. It was very difficult at the beginning. The first thing we had to solve was food, clothing, housing, and transportation. Food is easy to solve. My craftsmanship is still good. I can handle fried fish or potatoes very well. The destroyer Queen of Heaven is very good at tailoring and clothing. She solves it for everyone. The Prince of Wales liked to drink. During the most difficult period, she almost gave up drinking. During the journey, we actually met people who came to chat with us, saying they wanted to help us solve our problems, but we could see their malicious intent at a glance, so of course we didn't believe it. After we left there, they didn't do anything extra. Even the underworld would not just rob civilian girls, but in the end it was settled. The heavy cruiser London later left. She said that since we have reached this point, it doesn't matter if we stay together any longer. She is going to find a way to cook food, but she also knows how to cook in the dark. Counterattack laughed and added, it should be murderous food. Later we found an originally abandoned garrison, which was really beaten to pieces by the deep-sea warships. I don't know why, but it was abandoned anyway. Broken walls, after all, they were all big rocks, and there were large fallen tree trunks, and there were colorful mushrooms growing on the rotten trunks, and the fireflies wanted to pick them and eat them. Lying on the counter-attacking thigh, Firefly listened quietly. She had also experienced that period of time. When she heard the embarrassing things in the past, her face turned red. To clean up the tutelage, many things cannot be done with the power of the ship girl. If you use it, the resources spent will be more troublesome than the convenience it brings. Anyway, it took many days to clean up the abandoned tutelage. It is not a simple matter to start from scratch. Although the Prince of Wales and I were very strong, we actually had no money. Later, when we got rich, we hired some ordinary people to help. At this time, Counterattack touched the paint of the yacht with his palm as he spoke, as if he was recalling the difficult days before, walking forward step by step, without relying on anyone. At this time, those hard days turned into sweetness when I think back on them. The maid outfit was the same as the one in the game. She was wearing a specially customized maid outfit. She put on white gloves and touched the hull of the ship. Then she raised her hand and twirled her fingers. The white gloves were covered with dust. It took a long time to build the garrison, and I originally thought that the rest of my life would be peaceful. In such days, maybe one day I will forget my memories and lose my pursuits, and maybe it will be a little bit better. Disappeared. All in all, those are things for later. We are still very excited and happy to build the garrison for the first time. Counterattack sat there quietly, with the sun shining on her body. She smiled demurely, pursed her thin lips, and looked well behaved. At this time, the sound stopped, and the sight turned to the sea. The sky was as blue as a wash, and there was a line of sky and sea in the distance. For the first time, we encountered a problem, a big problem, as big as a building. Looking for the lost ship girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 187. We encountered difficulties for the first time. After all, at that time we suddenly discovered that we really lacked a lot of understanding of the world. The original townhouse was really like an ivory tower and a dreamland. It may be easy to build a garrison. For the ship girl, it is just a place to live. It does not require large machinery or large factories for logistics, and there is not even huge management pressure. After all, the ship girl is not like a real battleship. Generally, a destroyer requires hundreds of people, and a large aircraft carrier even requires thousands of people to work. It is precisely because of this that the main force against deep-sea ship girls becomes ship girls, and it is also because of the huge logistical pressure. Since your disappearance, we all attacked together, and the resources of the garrison disappeared as if they were squandered. At that time, we didn't have much idea about resources. When we actually got the garrison, we realized that things were not like before. I don't know why there were so many resources before, but when we established the garrison, we found that it was really difficult to get resources, very difficult. The Prince of Wales and I didn't dare to get hurt, not at all. I didn't have resources and didn't know how to find them later. I asked the ship girls I met occasionally at sea. That's when I realized that when you defeat the deep-sea ship girls, you can apply to the ship girls' headquarters based on your results, and there will also be supplies at the garrison every month. But a town like ours doesn't have the resources to supply it. Even if it sinks a deep-sea ship girl, it can't apply to the ship girl headquarters with the results. If you want to request supplies and battle results from the ship's headquarters, a garrison must have a human admiral. But you can't be found. The Prince of Wales and I don't want anyone to enter the garrison. In the end, it was difficult to run the garrison. Regarding this point, Sugu knew very well that a formal garrison must have a human as its admiral. No matter how powerful a garrison is, if it only has ship girls, it will never be considered a formal garrison. This is an agreement between the human government and the ship girl headquarters, and it also ensures the importance of human beings in this war against the deep-sea ship girls, and the ship girls cannot be separated from humans. After all, even among countries, there is a saying that those who are not from our race must have different opinions, let alone the issue of treating ship girls. It is impossible to completely trust the ship girl, and as a human being, we cannot fight alone. Humans provide logistics and comfortable life, and the ship girl fights against the deep-sea ship girl. This is an act of mutual dependence. Just like the relationship between rights and obligations. Of course, for a garrison, human society will provide many things and grant many privileges. But correspondingly, a sea area must be suppressed and work passively. First of all, as a ship girl, it is rare for a ship girl to have such thoughts. At most, she is as lazy as Bazi. Secondly, if you only enjoy rights but do not assume obligations, there are also military police to ensure the minimum requirements for a town government. We need someone to be our ship girl, but you're missing. It's always difficult for a garrison without an admiral. Once there is a conflict with humans, there is always no way to handle it well. Unlike ship girls, ordinary people have complicated hearts and have all kinds of problems. For example, they are superstitious, evil, and cunning. As a ship girl, although I can see through whether they have malicious intentions, I don't know what to do. Anyway, they look so shameless, and ship girls always have a disadvantage in communicating with humans. Counterattack whispered, "We are missing someone, we are missing an admiral." Without training from the academy, it is easy to make mistakes on many issues, and if there are no old practices to follow. As an admiral, studying in the academy is to learn how to deal with various problems. An admiral ensures that there is no interference from the outside world in the garrison, so that the ship girl will not be distracted. This is also the role played by the admiral in a garrison. A tutelary house was established at a young age without study or training. The foundation of such a tutelary house is simply unstable, just like a high-rise building that lacks a foundation. Even now, even those admirals who have been sent down will go to the academy to study every once in a while. At this time, she put her hands on her legs. Then she looked at Sugu, who was listening attentively, then at Exeter and Amethyst, and pursed her lips. "We didn't know you were here until we met Exeter in the church." Counterattack lowered his head and continued, "You know why we go there? Because of Amethyst." "Where do you work in Exeter? What exactly is the nature of her job?" Sugu knew it clearly. "I remember that when I met Exeter, I felt really embarrassed at that time, so I spoke out what was in my heart. Later, I actually met, but those are all in the past tense. Now there is a problem. Exeter it is there to serve those ship girls and admirals who are in a confusing situation." Sugu looked at Amethyst at this time, because Ying had already gotten off the knee pillow that was fighting back. At this time, Amethyst, the middle school girl, was wrapping one hand around Ying's neck. They were strangled and noisy like this until Firefly started screaming, and then they were let go, and then the two of them started to fight in the cabin. In any case, such a happy middle school girl actually has a reason to go to Exeter? Repulse lowered his head and said, "Since the disappearance of Firefly, the Prince of Wales has locked himself in the room a lot of time. You know, when a ship girl falls into confusion and self-blame, it is often a ship girl who falls into the deep sea." Beginning. Why did Amethyst go? What did she think? Because of her relationship, Firefly disappeared, and then the Prince of Wales fell into self-blame. And because of your departure, the Prince of Wales was indeed confused. When Amethyst saw the Prince of Wales, he always kept the door closed, fearing that the Prince of Wales would fall into the deep sea, so he felt uneasy every day. The ship girl has all the good qualities. The corresponding deep-sea ship girls are ship girls who have lost themselves. They represent hatred, despair, anger, and many evil things. When a ship girl experiences betrayal and deception, one day when she despairs of the world, she will fall or sink and become a deep-sea ship girl. The counterattack in a maid uniform put her legs on the stool, then hugged the curled legs with both hands, rested her head on her knees and looked at Sugu, and said, "Admiral, do you know? There is a lack of an admiral to an admiral. What a mischief a garrison can do. The Prince of Wales would not fall into confusion if you were there, nor would you be at Amethyst. Admiral, do you know? Without an admiral, many ship girls will easily fall into confusion and trouble, because you are the flag and belief. Admiral, do you know? Our garrison is really without you. Admiral, you will come to our garrison. Everyone misses you, the Prince of Wales misses you, and misses you terribly, because you might really fall into the deep sea." After speaking back, he stared at Sugu. Sugu looked at the counterattack and still smiled obediently, lowered his head slightly, and then said firmly, I will go." At this time, Exeter, who was sitting next to him, glanced at the counterattack, and then at Sugu. At this time, she looked at Sugu and thought to herself, the Prince of Wales really misses you and wants to tie you to his side. But no matter what. If you want to go to see the Prince of Wales alone, forget it. Even if you don't let Bismarck accompany you, at least let Lexington accompany you. Don't look at the counterattack, there are 3 taboos, one for you, one for the Prince of Wales, and one for her sister's reputation. It was already sunset when Sugu saw the sun turn orange and the yacht parked on the pier of his townhouse. After getting off the yacht, he stood on the pier and invited Tianhao to visit his townhouse. Compared to the opponent's messy Larry mansion, which was like a hodgepodge of various styles, Sugu was quite confident in the layout he designed himself. Of course, Sugu sincerely invited him, but at this moment, seeing Counterattack, Exeter, and others disembarking one by one, Tianhao was unwilling to disembark. "It's getting very late. I can't visit your garrison anymore. Kaohsiung is still waiting for me. If I go back too late, she will break my legs. How can I beat you? Are you a henpecker? How is it possible? Do I seem to be a strict wife? I am so majestic and I always say what I say." Of course I refused because it was too late. Tianhao looked at the sky, held his chin and thought for a long time before finally refusing. He felt that he was sad when he saw Lexington, shed tears when he saw San Juan, and then thought that the opponent's initial ship was York City. Right in front of him was Counterattack in a maid outfit and Exeter with long pink hair, plus Firefly and Amethyst Quartz, and he felt that he needed comfort. So now I have coldly rejected the invitation from the ugly Europeans. I'm leaving, I won't send you off. Just like that, Tianhao waved his hand to signal Sugu to stop, without inviting or sending. Then he drove the yacht towards his garrison. The yacht headed towards the sunset, leaving a wave of waves on the calm sea. After being exhausted physically and mentally for a long time, he returned to his garrison, saw Kaohsiung, and then pounced on him. As expected, I still can't do it. Every time I see those Europeans, I feel sad. As expected, I'm still not good at it. Apart from you, I've never been able to make a ship girl. The black-haired beauty Kaohsiung picked up her admiral as if she were a child, and said softly, "It doesn't matter even if you can't make a ship girl, I will do everything, and no matter the future why, at least there is someone behind you who loves you." "Thank you." Kaohsiung saying this, Tianhao rubbed the other person's chest. Then he added, "But to be honest, I saw a light cruiser Helena before, and the scale of that ship was really amazing. I like it so much, I like it so much. It's much more powerful than yours." Then just like that, when Tianhao felt the hand that was stroking his back stop, he looked up and saw only Kaohsiung with a gloomy face. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 188. Climbing up the long steps from the pier to the governor's house, iron handrails were installed on both sides of the stairs. At this time, Amethyst Quartz and Firefly were lying on the handrails while walking and looking into the distance. Walking inside the townhouse, Sugu introduced his thoughts when designing the townhouse to Counterattack and Exeter. For example, let's talk about what it was like originally, and where it has its own merits. That's the dormitory building. He motioned to everyone in front, where there was a tall building that looked like the one in the 1970s and 1980s that Sugu remembered. One building could accommodate dozens or hundreds of people. Standing on the steps and looking up, the unpainted blue bricks on the back of the tall building are exposed. From a distance, no trace of roughness can be seen, but it has a simple style. Walking all the way into the governor's house, there were strong winds and heavy rains at night a few days ago. When I got up the next day, I found that the concrete floor was covered with fallen leaves. After that, everyone cleaned it together, but I can still see a few fallen leaves. Counterattack looked at the fallen leaves and wanted to get the bamboo broom leaning against the wall. Probably because the maid's soul was burning, he wanted to do a general cleaning on the spot, but Sugu stopped him. "I want to put that swing on. Did you see those 2 super thick iron chains? It's my strong request. Safety first. That row of shrubs used to be a mess, but then I bought a pair of fruit shears and cut all the shrubs into round shapes. Oh, they look pretty good now. That's the mess hall, forget it, we won't go to the mess hall. Discussing the mess hall or food with a British ship is the most stupid behavior. Stay here for a few days. Countered, I want more. Sugudian could understand the idea of counterattack, and then she and Exeter prepared to go to the office with the counterattack. The office is on the first floor of the dormitory building. As I walked closer, I saw Prince Eugen running over first from a distance. Then someone was waving on the third floor. Sugu looked up and saw from the long pink hair that it was Bizai. At this time, Bizai shouted loudly, "Admiral, I like you so much." Sugu looked at Bizai, who was shouting loudly on the third floor, with some confusion as to why he suddenly said such words. "Admiral, I really like you." Bizai said this again, and then ran away. "Are you going to come down?" Sugu was even more confused. Not long after, Prince Eugen ran up to him. Sugu asked the girl with blue hair and twin tails, what on earth is she doing in Bizai? Prince Eugen explained, she made a mistake and was forced to kneel on the washboard by Bismarck. Bismarck said that when you come back, you can get up at the North House anytime, and then you came back like this. Of course she was happy. Sugu Murin, that's really good luck, but Bizai's ability to commit suicide is really good. At this time, Prince Eugen saw several people following Sugu and shouted, "Counterattack, Amethyst, and Exeter." Of course, we know the counterattack, and Prince Eugen participated in the Battle of Denmark Strait. She still remembered herself, Wichita, and Quincy, the three of them always hanging out at sea in the Denmark Strait. The reason for this is mainly because they are heavy cruisers that the garrison can handle. There were other Kaohsiung families, including Blucher, London, Kent, etc., but they were all transformed or grown up and then ignored. Oh, and the Admiral Hipper, Prince Eugen has almost forgotten his eldest sister now. At this time, Exeter was also looking at Prince Eugen with an innocent expression. It actually took him so long to recognize himself. Was he so insignificant? Prince Eugen said with his hands behind his back, "It turns out that the Admiral is planning to find you, so quickly. I just happened to meet." Sugu looked towards the dormitory building, and Prince Eugen asked, "Admiral, what have you been looking at?" Seeing us, Bizai didn't come down. Prince Eugen said helplessly, "She doesn't care about anything. She probably went back to reading her notebook." Talking casually, he walked into the office. Then Sugu watched Lexington sitting in his original seat, now wearing his own hat, with a surprised expression when he saw him back. "Ah, why are you back?" Coming back with a counterattack and others was undoubtedly a big deal. Soon after, news spread everywhere, and a lot of people gathered in the office. Lexington and Bismarck were certainly present. The little girls were crowded together. The only discordant thing here was Thatcher sniffing around Amethyst, really like a Shiba Inu. Among these people, even Akage, who had been drinking tea quietly every day, came over. "How did you meet Counterattack and Exeter? Where's the Prince of Wales? Where's the Prince of Wales? Why didn't she come over?" After all, everyone had basically heard about it, and the counterattack was with the Prince of Wales. "Counterattack, why don't you get tired of wearing a maid uniform everywhere?" These were Saratoga's words. "Oh, fight back." These were the words of the lazy Bazai, who was forcibly pulled over. "Where's the Amethyst? Where's the Amethyst? She's playing with the destroyer over there. It's great that the child has no ideas. Also, Sigsby, don't play tricks on Amethyst." Everyone said something, and then the whole office became noisy. At this time, they didn't know what to do to fight back. She didn't speak either, and slowly the surrounding voices quieted down, except for the whispers of a few little girls. Then just like that, Counterattack answered everyone's questions one by one. At the end of the matter, Sugu announced his decision that he would follow the counterattack and visit their garrison. Obviously this is a bigger problem, Lexington said, "You said you want to go to the Prince of Wales? But it is already the end of the year, it is better to wait until after the year." "It doesn't matter. It's New Year's Eve. It can be celebrated any year. The Prince of Wales's place, it's actually very difficult there. I'll go over and see if I can help." "Actually, there is no need for Admiral to go there. Just let them go back and ask them to bring a letter with them, counterattack will definitely go back." "Admiral, it will be too tiring for you to go there. Besides, you won't be of much use." Sugu looked embarrassed. "I'm very useful, it's not that exaggerated. It's not like going to mountains and seas of fire. It can be regarded as a trip for the time being. And just like me, missing for such a long time has led to the guard everyone in the house was separated. In the end, I actually found someone else. Isn't it too insincere to just give a letter and ask someone to bring it over? If something happens and I can't leave, then there is nothing I can do. But now that there is nothing, I will run away. Just take a moment." Everyone was silent. In the meeting, Saratoga raised his hand and said loudly, "I want to go too. It's not like traveling. If you go and she goes, everyone goes, and then there's no way to do anything." Then we talked on the phone for a long time, and it was late in the evening when we finally made a decision. Although he said he wanted to go find the Prince of Wales, it was certainly not that urgent, and there was really no need to rush there at night. Soon after, they talked for a while, saying that everyone hadn't eaten yet, and then retorted that she wanted to cook for herself, as she was a maid after all. Lexington was silent for a moment and said, "Counterattack, you are a guest, there is no reason for you to take action. Prince Eugene goes, let Prince Eugene go." Prince Eugene nodded there too. Bismarck also nodded and expressed his opinion, "I also think Prince Eugene should be allowed to go." Whether it was Lexington, Saratoga, or Bismarck, among these many people, one could even see Firefly trying to dissuade her. After following Sugu for such a long time, her taste had been completely cultivated. Among the people, Akage was the only one who was sitting there a little strange, why everyone was trying to dissuade him from cooking. In my impression, the food cooked by Counterattack is quite good. After all, she is definitely not picky about food. Seeing how enthusiastic and polite everyone was at this time, Counterattack quickly waved his hands and said, I'll come, and besides, I'm not really a guest." Lexington added, "Today you come here as a guest, but tomorrow you will be one of our own. If you want to cook, you should wait until later." Just like that, the issue about the canteen was the first problem I encountered when I came back. But in a short period of time, more things happened. For example, he looked at Sugu, who was standing next to the bed with a cute counterattack, and said, "Master, let me take off your clothes." Sugu said calmly, "No, you go out first, I can be alone." "That's all right. I'm your maid, so let me serve you." Then the door opened and it was Lexington in his pajamas. "Lexington, please listen to my explanation. If you're counterattack, please listen to my explanation. Lexington came here in pajamas. She is my wedding ship. It's normal. Another example is in the morning. Sugu took his toothbrush, looked at the counterattack and said, "You don't have to wake me up in the morning, I can get up, and I don't need you to dress for me. I don't need you to brush my teeth for me, and I don't need you to do it for me. Wash your face, well, if you have time, go take care of Xiao Zai and wake up everyone on the destroyer." When he counterattacked and walked away, Sugu looked at the opponent's back. This was really a happy trouble. After eating breakfast, and then packing up his clothes in a mess, Sugu called Xiao Zai, and then thought that he was not traveling, so he had to give up the idea of taking Xiao Zai out. So he could only pick up Xiao Zai, who was walking over, and kiss him hard. Then he rubbed the other person's short pink hair regardless of the little girl's objections. Although New Year's Eve is a very important day, it is nothing compared to the Prince of Wales waiting there. This team includes Sugu, Counterattack, Firefly, and Amethyst. Then Exeter expressed her opinion. She was originally on leave and wanted to go back. Although Sugu felt more and more at ease with his repeated persuasion, and finally said that he wanted to talk to his senior, Laya, who had taken care of him in the past. And there are still some things to explain. For example, Sister York has not come back yet. She must at least leave a letter there to explain her situation, and then she will come over and not leave. The safety of the journey naturally comes from counterattack. As an excellent maid, she strives to be the perfect maid leader like her sister. She is good at every aspect. Of course, some aspects are just a matter of taste. Compared with the counterfeit maid like Fletcher, the genuine maid's counterattack naturally has its own style. It's said to be a counterattack. If you don't stop him, Sugu doesn't even doubt that he can do almost everything from undressing to dressing and even warming the bed, from brushing your teeth to washing your face. Of course, if you want to warm the bed, you must first give a ring. Even the maid has her own reserve in some aspects. The place where the Prince of Wales lives is far to the west, and it is not a place that can be reached by just taking a boat. In the past, ferry tickets there could only be purchased in Sichuanxiu. Sichuanxiu is a shipping center, and most ships going to all over the world would dock there. In the end, you need to take a yacht to a nearby county, then transfer to a big city like Sichuanxiu, and finally take a boat to the west. Of course I couldn't make it in time for New Year's Eve, although I did a lot of things to arrange the New Year's Eve and purchased a lot of New Year's goods. Smoked sausages and bacon, it seems we won't be able to eat them on New Year's Eve. It turned out that we had agreed to make egg noodles and pork belly for Zai, so we bought fermented bean curd for this purpose, but it seemed that there was no way to make it. But even so, there is nothing to regret, as the feelings come into contact one by one. From the initial small house to San Juan, and finally to Amethyst and counterattack, the emotions carried on me became heavier and heavier. Although from an indifferent perspective, whether I respond to your feelings for me or not is my business. After all, this world does not mean that if you treat me well, I must treat you. But Sugu still can't do it with such indifference. At the dock in the county town, he waved to Lexington and the others and said, "You go ahead, you don't have to wait for me here. Come back early and take everyone with you." "Yeah, yes." Exeter said, "Really not taking Bismarck or Lexington with you?" "No." Soon after, counterattack, Firefly and Amethyst boarded a passenger ship bound for Chuangziu. Get off the boat at Chuangziu and then board the boat again. The passenger ship breaks through the waves and sails towards the sea in the morning light. Standing on the deck of the passenger ship, a small figure can be seen next to the passenger ship. It was a ship girl who was guarding a passenger ship just like the old San Juan. From a distance, the ship girl was just a small black dot. I didn't know who she was or what she was. At this time, he knew that there was someone waiting for him on the other side of the sea, nicknamed Big Brother, who was also the battleship Prince of Wales. In the original game, I gave the ring to the opponent solely because of the bad character in his swimsuit. If it were in reality, I don't know what it would feel like. Presumably in the other person's mind, he is a very bad admiral. Sugu said, "I wonder what it would be like to meet the Prince of Wales." Counterattack stood nearby and said, "It will probably be wonderful." Counterattack stretched out a hand in the corridor, feeling the increasing sea breeze. She pushed her wind-blown bangs behind her ears and said, "Master, the sea wind is getting strong. Go back to the cabin." "Let's go back to the cabin, fight back to serve you." Sugu looked at the people around him looking at him, smiled bitterly and said, "Fight back, don't say such words that can easily be misunderstood. Is it because I am not worthy of serving you? After all, I am not as prestigious as my sister. You know, that's not what I meant." Saying this, he pushed open the cabin door and entered the room. Firefly was waving a magic wand that came from nowhere. It seems that it is her ship uniform, but it has no other use and is purely for fun. At this time, under the influence of the middle school girl Amethyst, she became noisy. Firefly said to Amethyst, "The magic that will inflict pain on you." The cute Amethyst Quartz, who was wearing a gothic Lolita outfit, shouted and waved her hand, "This is a palm technique falling from the sky." She said this without even jumping. Looking at them, Sugu smiled. This is a ship girl, but she is also a lovely girl and a pure girl. Now they are not characters in the game. They have their own thoughts, joys and sorrows, so they must take responsibility. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 189. There were about 2 days until New Year's Eve. This was many days after leaving Chuangzhou by boat. Sugu counted the days on his fingers. Although I say in front of everyone that I don't care about New Year's Eve at all, to be honest, I still care a little. I heard that the nearby county town would hold a New Year's Eve party when I was in the governor's mansion, but I naturally didn't get to watch it until now. I originally went to buy fireworks when I was in the governor's mansion, but now I still can't watch the fireworks. The passenger ship we were traveling on at this time was a big ship. We spent a lot of money when buying the tickets. After some consideration, we finally bought a second-class cabin. There was nothing to do during the day on the boat except chatting with him or teasing the little girl. Every day after dinner, Sugu would sit on the deck and watch the sea. Occasionally, Sugu would chat with people. I heard that there are big names on the passenger ship, because there are even battleships among the escorting ships, instead of just light cruisers and destroyers as escorts like ordinary passenger ships. Then in the afternoon, I saw the battleship girl who was escorting the passenger ship. She was a blonde girl. She was not around. She was familiar with everyone in the garrison compared to herself. At that time, Sugu deliberately walked up and waved in front of the other party. Although he could not make any gestures, he deliberately walked in front of the other party several times. Well, after being ignored, it turns out that it is impossible to meet his ship girl so easily. In the evening, I heard a counterattack and said that the battleship was the USS Nevada. Sugu said that she didn't look like Nevada at all, because the ship girl looked very quiet, and Nevada obviously didn't have that kind of personality. Then I thought about it and realized that I couldn't directly apply what I knew in the game to this world. Although the ship girls I have met so far are similar to those in the game, of course there is no way to tell whether the three-dimensional drawings are similar to the real ones. However, subjectively, whether it is appearance or personality, it is still similar to the image in my imagination. Lexington is gentle, Akagi is dignified, Beja is a homebody, and Bismarck is a tomboy. However, I also learned in the academy that there are so many ship girls in this world, and each ship girl actually has her own appearance and personality. Sugu remembered that he had asked his classmates in the academy before. When an admiral wants to wake up a ship girl from the steel, he can first see the history sleeping in the steel. That history is like a movie. Generally, the ship girl awakens from the memory and history of steel. Even if the same type of ship girl is built, if you see a similar history, the character and appearance of the built ship girl will be similar. If you see a different one, then the character will be somewhat different. Of course, Quincy must be a fool. This is a fact that will never change. God bless Quincy. So sometimes I wonder if the heavy cruiser New Orleans will be headless. After all, in history, the New Orleans lost its bow and became a headless horseman. But thinking about it, that scene is actually a bit scary. I was bored on the passenger ship, and I didn't originally think of bringing some books. I occasionally chatted with the passengers on the passenger ship, and I often thought about various things to pass the time. For example, what should I do if I meet my own ship girl in the future? What attitude should we adopt? To be tougher or gentler? Chatting, basking in the sun, and occasionally taking a look at the casino at the bottom of the passenger ship, but definitely not participating. The passenger ship stopped and stopped along the way, and many people got on and off. There were also some problems on the seventh day. The day after the passenger ship docked, it seemed that someone had brought a pistol onto the ship. It was later found out, and the whole ship was in an uproar and panic. During that time, Sugu was locked in the room and was not allowed to go out. When it comes to dealing with safety issues, counterattacks also have their own persistence, even if the target is their own admiral and master. In the next day, Sugu kept saying that even if it was an assassination attempt, he would not find someone like him. If he was dealing with a big shot on the ship, his character would not provoke others casually. After finally being released, I saw the so-called big shot on the passenger ship in the afternoon. The other person looked like an admiral, looking like an old handsome guy. A powerful governor? Sugu thought about whether to get close to him, but then he realized that he couldn't get in front of him at all. At night, guess with counterattack who the big shot on the ship is? Sugu said, I think it should be the admiral. Even if not, he is a senior government official or the head of state. But the bodyguards around him are all girls. He must be the admiral, maybe the governor. The governor is one level higher than the admiral, but even the governor does not represent strength most of the time, but only honor, just like a military rank. An admiral is like a warlord, and the ship girls under him are the soldiers in his hands. Whoever has a powerful ship girl under his command has a greater say. It is never decided by military rank. A governor might just be a seasoned veteran. Sugu added, but he looked very arrogant. We wanted to go over and have a look but were stopped by her bodyguards. Counterattack said, at their level, including the battleship that escorts the passenger ship, there is no problem if they are all on board together. They may not be able to blast away their own armor. Master, just say something and counterattack will fight for you. Sugu said, just tell me, if it's a critical hit, even you will definitely be seriously injured. The counterattack said, as long as you, master, are by my side, the counterattack will become very powerful. The closer I am, the more powerful it will be. If I'm far away, it won't work. Why does it get more powerful the closer you get? Because I want to protect you. It doesn't matter when you are far away. Sugu thought for a moment and realized that the closer he got, the more powerful it became. This was not the same skill as the counterattack in the original game. The closer to the starting point, the higher the data bonus. The skills of the original game are actually expressed in this form. But if this is the case, then reputation is almost the opposite of counterattack skills. It doesn't mean that the closer you are, the worse your ability will be. Reputation skills are completely opposite to counterattack. Sugu said, the closer your reputation is to me, the worse your ability will be. He counterattacked, sister will definitely be worried about you and may not be able to use her tricks around you. After all, she is the head maid. The safety of the master is of course the most important thing. Sister also has weaknesses. Yet. After talking like this for a while, Sugu opened the door and walked to the corridor outside to get some air. Not long after he walked out, he saw the handsome old admiral standing on the lower deck, with a girl beside him. A teenage bride and 80-year-old man, with pale hair and red makeup. Mandarin ducks sleep in pairs at night, and a pear tree presses the begonia. After reciting a sentence softly like this, Sugu heard a cough, and then he found a counterattack following him. Sugu suddenly felt a little embarrassed. The counterattack was indifferent and said, with the change of mentality, even the ship girl will grow old. Love comes from the heart, and the ship girl has truly implemented this. Even a ship girl will look older if she continues to live with her admiral as her mood changes. But even if she is old, a ship girl still looks like a beautiful woman in her 40s. Sugu nodded, then shrugged, thinking that a lifelike ship girl is really cute, an elf born with beautiful memories. On the way to the west, I don't know how much time I will spend on the ship. As it got closer and closer to the west, the passenger ship docked in various cities, and there were more and more blonde and blue-eyed people on the ship, speaking with various accents and languages. That's it? In the morning, Sugu took Firefly and Amethyst to have dinner. When he came back, he saw someone accosting Counterattack. Although she was wearing a maid outfit, she was still such a beautiful girl. In the past, when Sugu was around, no one would be interested in joining her. Unexpectedly, someone started chatting with her in such a short time. Of course, the final result was that the conversation was over. He countered, "I told him that I am the master's personal maid, but he still refuses to let me go. It's very troublesome and funny. He brings me flowers and reads poems to me. Sending flowers and reading poems is quite romantic. Why did it become a show? It's certainly very funny to do some self-righteous romance out of nowhere." After lunch, Sugu saw the flower girl selling flowers when passing by the deck. He hesitated for a long time and bought a bouquet of flowers. When he returned to the cabin, he gave the flowers to Counterattack. When he gave them to Counterattack, Sugu felt that he was being funny. Counterattack took the flowers and asked, "Why are you thinking of giving me flowers? It looks like you like it." Counterattack lowered his head and said, "Thank you." Then the next day, the man who originally approached me again approached me, and I have to say that he was indeed a handsome man. He babbled for a long time, and Sugu waved his hands to express that he didn't understand. Then the other party showed an anxious look on his face, and then he poured out a lot of gold coins from a large pocket. The gold coins glittered in the blind man's eyes. However, Sugu still didn't understand what he said, and he responded with a weird expression on the translator. He said he wanted to use the money to buy my freedom from you. Sugu looked at the Counterattack and said, "You have always been free." The man was still chattering. Sugu said, "Let him go." His eyes signaled the Counterattack translator. The man was still chattering. Sugu frowned and said, "Let him go." Counterattack translates back. The man's expression suddenly changed, and he threw a glove over without putting away the gold coins. Sugu did know what throwing gloves meant, which meant dueling. However, the glove was caught in the air by a counterattack. After all, it was a counterattack against the perfect maid like her sister. After all, it was a counterattack that swore to Lexington that even a fly would never get close to her master. It's just a pair of gloves. At this time, the opponent saw that the glove he threw was caught by a counterattack. The scene was a little awkward for a while. The man's face turned red, and he finally said a lot of nonsense, and also said a few words in counterattack. Finally, the man left. Before leaving, of course I didn't forget to take away my gold coins. He came here out of nowhere and wanted to duel, but what did you say in the end? Counterattack said with a straight face, he said he wanted to decide my affiliation through a duel. He said I was coerced by you and asked me not to be afraid. His family runs a big company and knows people. Then I scolded him and told him to get out. If he continues to pester me, I will take action. Sugu said, a self-righteous rich second generation. Then from then on, Sugu found that whenever he met the other person, that person would glare at him. Sugu said, "Look, he's looking at me with that look again, now he's looking at you again. He probably thinks you are a hopelessly fallen maid. But he wants to duel with me to decide your fate. It's simply damn it, you are my ship girl, and he wants to decide your fate through a duel. Is he trying to do nothing? And what you want to do is not decided by me, nor by him. It's up to you to decide. He was being disrespectful when he suggested this kind of duel. Counterattack smiled and said, I am your personal maid. Of course it is up to you to decide what you want to do, even if it means going to the mountains of swords and seas of fire. Sugu looked at the counterattack, then lowered his head and said, then stay with me. He could probably guess some of his shipgirl's thoughts, which was to get his own approval. Soon after, Sugu returned to the cabin with the counterattack, and then saw Amethyst standing on the bed. There were 2 layers of beds, and Amethyst was standing on the upper floor, standing taller now. She looked at Sugu and said loudly, where have you gone? You finally know that you are back. As my knight, how can you leave the lady? In these days, Amethyst has become very familiar with Sugu. Sugu's personality is very casual. Even if the little girl gets into trouble, he will not scold her with a straight face, but will play with her. These days, Sugu has taken on many identities, including a brave man, a knight, and a great devil. Sugu raised his head and said, Amethyst, you are wearing a skirt and you are not even wearing pants. Amethyst was stunned for a moment, then retorted loudly, yes, I'm wearing safety pants. Why can't I see it? Then the little girl immediately lifted up her skirt, exposed her white safety pants, and said loudly, I'm wearing them, look at them. Firefly was laughing beside him, Counterattack was laughing beside him, and Sugu burst into laughter and pounded the bed with his hands. As Amethyst's face turned red, Sugu was hit by Amethyst. Amethyst's eyes were red, and Sugu comforted her. The 4 of them shared a cabin and soon began to sleep. Sugu lay on the pillow. Amethyst, do you know? For people in the other world, night is the beginning of the day. There is powerful power sealed in your eyes. You should know. The long night is long and I have no intention of sleeping. I wish Xiu Yan well, no, I wish I could have fun teasing the little loli. Looking for the Lost Ship Girl. Author, Hai De Rong Yan. Chapter 190. After finally getting off the bumpy passenger ship, Sugu remembered that in the past, because he lived in an inland city, there were few opportunities to take a ship. At first, he was very excited to take the small house on the ship. However, I lost interest after only being excited for a day, and because during my time here, I frequently took boats. This time it took so long that I was almost sick from sitting. But it's like the underworld is surrounded by underworld, the powerful can always meet the powerful, and the common people are often surrounded by the common people. Birds of a feather flock together, and as an admiral, it is always easy to deal with ships and ship girls, and there is no way around it. After getting off the passenger ship, what appeared in the field of vision was a very beautiful city with typical Western-style buildings, and the circular church spire could be seen in the distance. At this time, Sugu was stroking the painted wooden handrails at the pier, looking at the red and white lifebuoys hanging on the handrails, and a large group of seagulls flying around. I thought, this is a good place even as a tourist destination. On the street outside the pier, there are beautiful cafes with parasols on the roadside, grocery stores with hats and clocks in the cabinets, and various unique shops. It was gratifying to see such scenery. The only dissatisfaction was probably that Sugu couldn't understand the language. But just like there are big boats and small boats in the whole pier, there are blonde and blue-eyed people. There are also many Orientals here, so of course there are also people who speak Chinese. This is not the world in Sugu's memory. Thanks to hard work and the spirit of exploration, Chinese is now widely circulated in the world. People with obsessive-compulsive disorder will probably be very happy to see all kinds of fruits neatly placed on the roadside. There are also various aquatic products next to the fruit stall, such as crabs, squid, hairtail, tuna, and so on. In addition, compared with the fruit stalls and seafood stalls everywhere, there are far fewer people selling spices and tea. When I come here and walk around, I occasionally see people wearing tall gentleman hats and tuxedos, and women wearing long skirts with many flowers. In the past, Sugu had heard that some places still respected knights and nobles, and it seemed that this was the place. In comparison, the costumes of Counterattack and Amethyst are not surprising here. Not long after, he was sitting in a small shop on the roadside and counterattacked, "The people here are undisciplined. These shops close at 5 o'clock every day, and this place mainly relies on tourism. Because the locals have little interest in making money, there are many people come here to dig for gold. You see, even if those shops are decorated in a Western style, if they open a shop on weekends, then this shop must not be owned by locals." Sugu nodded. "Tea and porcelain here are very expensive because they have to be shipped from the east and the porcelain is easily damaged." Sugu said, "I used to read books about stuffing tea leaves into porcelain and transporting them together. How could people who do big business not think of this? And even for porcelain, the technology here should be pretty good, not as good as in the East. Porcelain is better. Good porcelain, such as bone china, is very beautiful and can only be found here." The counterattack hesitated for a moment and said, "Maybe those profiteers are bargaining, but they can't tell whether they are still unqualified as a maid. It would be great if I have sister's level." Sugu said, "How is your sister better than you? I think you are not bad. She is pretty. And her firepower is very strong. She is indispensable in every battle to suppress the deep-sea flagship. She is neat and tidy when doing things. How can I put it? She is chic, very chic, a dashing maid. The counterattack is also she couldn't think of too many things. Compared with whether she is powerful or not, admiring her sister is an instinct." She added, "And you should ask the master about this kind of thing. You gave her the ring but didn't give it to me. She must be more powerful. It's a special situation." Sugu stirred the rolls with a fork. Sugu looked at the fireflies running back and forth on the street, and said, "Speaking of which, you followed the Prince of Wales for a long distance, which is really impressive. Lexington used to live in Gießen, Bismarck and Bazai, they all live in Sichuanxiu, which is not too far away. But you have traveled so far all of a sudden. We'll be here soon if we walk a little bit. And there should be people who have walked further than us. Speaking of which, when are we going to the town hall? We've already disembarked. Now that we are here, we are not in a hurry to fight back. After all, the Prince of Wales is not really busy." He countered, "Master must be tired of staying on the boat and eating those things. Now that he's off the boat, of course he has to enjoy it. Firefly said that you established a garrison next to a town called Scala. Is this here?" "Of course not, this is a big city and Scala is just a small town." "I knew it, I just didn't think it looked like it. We'll go there after I finish eating." After finishing the meal soon, I called back Firefly and Amethyst Quartz, who were running around, and then walked back to the pier together. At this time, there were people greeting Counterattack along the way. As a ship girl, Counterattack may seem like a hero to many people, but Sugu feels that it is because of her independent and unique maid outfit that many people remember her. I have never seen Counterattack accompanied by a man. On the roadside, there is a familiar ant wearing a headscarf talking to Counterattack. But no matter what he said, the words were jittery in Sugu's ears anyway. Then he counterattacked and said something back. Then the ant's voice paused and she stared at Sugu with a strange look. Consultant Su asked, "What on earth are you talking about?" She asked me, "Who are you?" Then what? How do you answer? I told you that you were my admiral, but she didn't believe it. Just like this, he walked to the seaside and said, "Okay, we're at the beach. But we don't have a boat, so just let him carry his master there, don't mind." You don't mind, what do I have to mind? I've experienced this once before and asked Saratoga to carry him. Sugu then lay on the back of the counterattack. It had to be said that it was different from when Saratoga was carried on its back. Saratoga looked cold on the outside but was hot and jumping on the inside, while counterattack was indeed the same on the outside. Besides, compared to Saratoga's girlish figure, counterattack is a mature beauty. With counterattack on his back, there were people driving fishing boats standing on the sea along the way, holding fishing nets and pointing in this direction, but Sugu didn't pay much attention. Not long after, standing on the sea, I saw a small town in the distance, and the counterattack stopped. "Master, look over there, there is Scala." The small town called Scala has beautiful white walls and red tiles, but it seems that there are such houses everywhere in the west. Sugu said, "Should we go there now? Is the town government built on a small town?" "No, in the other direction, hold on to my ship, girl, I'm going forward." The counterattack continued, and then Sugu saw a small island. The island was getting closer and closer, and the beautiful town palace appeared in the field of vision. But compared to those houses in the town, what should I say about this townhouse? Like a castle. As he walked into the governor's mansion, Sugu looked up at the exaggerated city wall with a surprised expression. At the same time, Firefly stood on the land, opened her hands, and ran on the ground like an airplane. She was extremely familiar with this land. If she calculated it carefully, she had been away from here for several months now. Every flower, every grass, every brick, and every tile was extremely familiar to her. "Admiral, I'll show you my room." Counterattack stood aside and said, "This can't be done. Master first needs to see the Prince of Wales, your sister."